Hi, my name is Melissa van Dijk, and in today's video I'm going to show you how you can use the ordinary vitamin C suspension 30% in silicone. Now I want to put this video into categories, such as starting off with some main information. Then I want to show you what you should not combine, where you have to be careful, and what an example routine can look like. And then I want to lead into the entire application, specifically when using it along with other skincare products. And then lastly, I want to show you the mixing guide, how you can dilute it, how you can create a more potent combination, and what to do if you have sensitive skin and it starts to sting and burn on the skin. And so you will find the timestamps below. Now, first of all, the vitamin C suspension contains a 30% of ascorbic acid, which is a pure form of vitamin C, which can help you to reduce surface hyperpigmentation, already existing fine lines and wrinkles, and dullness. And you can use it on all skin types, as it mainly focuses on a specific skin concern. And so when including it in your skincare routine, you can use it in the morning, but it is preferred to only use it in the evening. So if you say, well, I always like to apply my sunscreen, I'm really doing this daily in my routine, I know how I can apply it evenly and effectively all over, then go ahead and include the vitamin C suspension in your morning skincare routine. However, if you're not that type of person, I highly recommend doing this only in the evening, because if you're not going to properly protect the vitamin C suspension with your sunscreen on top, you may experience a surface hyperpigmentation, like uneven brown patches, which can occur as the vitamin C starts to oxidize on your skin surface, which is very unpleasant. So therefore, please make sure to adjust it accordingly to how you like to work with your sunscreen. Now this, however, brings me to my example skincare routines, and first of all, what you should not combine and where you have to be careful. I have prepared those slides in PowerPoint slides so that you can see it visually. So I want to first of all get into the actual conflicts, and so this would be the ordinary peptide serums, any of them. Please do not use them in the same routine when using the vitamin C suspension. You can use them on the same day, but not in the same routine. So use your peptide in the morning, your vitamin C suspension in the evening. Then the same would apply to niacinamide. Same thing, do not use them together, keep them in separate routines. And then the same would apply to EUK, which is an antioxidant serum from The Ordinary. If you would combine it in the same routine with the vitamin C suspension, you would completely destroy the benefits of EUK, so keep them separate. Another point would be a strong exfoliating acid mask. Now in that specific point, it's not mainly about that it's going to destroy the benefits of the other one, but it's quite a very potent combination which can lead to a damaged skin barrier. Since exfoliating acid masks are already quite potent, plus the vitamin C suspension is quite potent, so it's best to use them in separate routines. So since you would use both in your evening skincare routine, whenever you're using, for example, the peeling solution, just leave out the vitamin C suspension. When not using the peeling solution, you can use the vitamin C suspension on the other evenings. This is how you can alternate between them. Same would apply when working with retinol or retinoids. So both should be used in the evening, like best would be used in the evening. And so to make sure that you still can use both in the evening and get the benefits out of them, I recommend alternating between them. So basically have 2 evening skincare routines. On Monday, work with your retinol retinoid. On Tuesday, your vitamin C suspension. On Wednesday, again, your retinol or retinoid, etc. So that you can nicely combine it, but still do not use them in the same routine. Now when it comes to where you have to be a bit more careful, then it would be exfoliating acid cleansers. It isn't wrong to use an exfoliating acid cleanser along with the vitamin C suspension, but the question is, does your skin tolerate it? Because if it does not tolerate it, it can lead to stinging and burning. Therefore, I recommend trying them out individually before thinking of using them together. The same would apply to leave-on exfoliating acid products. You can see some examples. So again, try them individually. If your skin tolerates both individually well, you do not come across any stinging or burning like overall sensitivity, then in the future you may want to think of using them together. And so then there you have an idea of how you can adjust your skincare routine accordingly. But now I want to lead into my example skincare routines that I've prepared for you so that you have an understanding of the order of application and that you can see an overall general guide of how much you need to use of each product. But before that, I want to give you the ordinary general guide based on what they recommend on how you should layer their products. Starting off with water-based serums, then moving on to anhydrous solutions, following with oils, then move on to your creams, which will be your moisturizer, and then lastly suspensions. And so there you have an overall general guide. And now let's put this into practice. What would a routine look like with some example products when looking into the ordinary products specifically? Well, I'm going to keep my main focus on an evening skincare routine. On the top, you can see the time of use. In the middle, the cleansing method, since I have two. Then you can see the steps, the products that I've picked, the order of application, and underneath you can see the general guide, which you can read through, and this should give you an idea of how much you need to use of each product when using them on the skin. Now you're going to get started with the first step, which is going to be your cleansing step. Ideally, a gentle cleanser that's suitable for your skin and type. Wash your face, rinse it off, pat the skin dry. Then you can move on to water-based serums. You can see some examples that target your specific skin concern. So this can be hydration, maybe another serum that targets hyperpigmentation, or even something like the caffeine solution if you should have dark circles. And so then you can go ahead, apply to the skin, leave it on the skin, and then move on to anhydrous solutions. And this is now where you can work with any of the other two antioxidant serums that the Ordinary offers, which would be Resveratrol and Ferulic acid or pycnogenol. Then apply to the skin, leave it on the skin. After that, if you should feel the need, you can add a moisturizer, apply to the skin, leave it on the skin, and then lastly follow on with the vitamin C suspension. Again, apply to the skin, leave it on the skin. Now, if you should have an extremely heavy moisturizer, something like CeraVe's Moisturizing Cream, Cetaphil's Moisturizing Cream, or like petrolatum jelly, then this order may change. Then you may want to use the vitamin C suspension first and then follow with your heavier moisturizer afterwards. But if you're working with a very lightweight moisturizer, which are most common, then you can use it just like after you have applied your lightweight moisturizer. So again, please make sure to adjust this order of application depending on what you're using. Now, if you say, well, I cannot properly remove my sunscreen and makeup with my regular cleanser, you can go ahead and do a double cleanse, which would lead me to my second method about cleansing. So you can use your micellar water, oil or balm cleanser as your first cleansing step, and then move on to your regular cleanser to make sure that you can properly take off your makeup, sunscreen from the skin before you're layering your skincare products on top of it. So this would be it, an overall general guide, an example routine of what can work well if you're using the Ordinary vitamin C suspension. Now, I have prepared for you an example morning skincare routine as well, but the key points right here would be basically your cleansing step and sunscreen during the day. Those are like the most essential steps that you should do during daytime. All the other steps in between are optional steps. If you want to go over those example skincare routines in your own time, you will find a link in the description box down below, and you can even download the PowerPoint slides. Now I want to keep my focus on the entire application. I have the setup right here so I can share this with you. So we're going to get started with the first step, which is going to be your cleansing step. Go ahead, choose a cleanser that's working well for you, that's able to properly remove an excess oil, dirt and sweat from the skin, and even to some extent makeup and sunscreen. But again, if that shouldn't work well with your regular cleanser, do a double cleanse. Now I have an example right here, which would be Cetaphil's Daily Facial Cleanser. If you should have a different one, replace it. That's completely fine. And please make sure to read on the back of the packaging on how you should use your cleanser. Most commonly, they do advise apply to wet skin and then rinse it off with water. But there are some cleansers like oil or balm cleansers that need to be applied to dry skin and then rinse it with water. You can wash your face above the sink or in the shower. Either way is fine. Just make sure to properly take it off the skin. So I'm going to get started with wetting my face, neck and hands with lukewarm water to warm water. Then I'm going to use about 1 to 2 pumps, maybe more or less about a coin-sized amount of cleanser on the palm of my hand, rub my hands together and then gently massage it over my face and neck for about 30 seconds to a minute, making sure that I'm not getting it into my eyes nor into my mouth. If that's the case, rinse it with water. So let's go ahead and do this. So once you have rinsed off like most of it with your hands, especially when doing this above the sink, using your hands alone may not be enough to properly get everything off the skin, and this is where I recommend using a clean makeup cloth or those microfiber cloths which you can wet, then squeeze them out and then gently swipe it across your face and neck to properly make sure that everything comes off the skin, including sunscreen and makeup. So once you have rinsed off everything from the skin, you now can go ahead and take a clean towel and remove the remaining water drops from the skin surface by gently patting over your face. Do not rub. This is an essential step to do in between so that you won't come across any layering issues when using your skincare products on top of it. So once you're done with your cleansing step, you can now immediately move on to the next step. Now, of course, if you want to use the vitamin C suspension on its own, that's completely fine. Now would be the time after your cleansing step. Use about a pea-sized amount and evenly blend it over your face and neck, avoiding the eye area, including your eyelids. And please do not get it into your eyes nor into your mouth. And then there you go. However, I'm now here to show you what an entire skincare routine can look like when combining it with the vitamin C suspension. So after your cleansing step, and if your skin can tolerate the combination of using a leave-on exfoliant and a vitamin C suspension in the same routine, now would be the time to include and apply your water-based leave-on exfoliant. This can be, for example, the ordinary glycolic acid toning solution, lactic acid, or even salicylic acid. Apply to the skin, leave it on the skin, there's no need to wash it off. And then you can move on to the next step, which would be including water-based serums that are targeting your specific skin concerns. Now, in this demonstration, I'm not going to include the exfoliant because I want to keep it as gentle as possible in case you may want to recreate the routine. So I'm immediately going to move on to the water-based serums that target a specific skin concern. So you have, for example, hydrating serums like hyaluronic acid or marine hyaluronics, or alpha-butane if you have surface hyperpigmentation, or you may just want to include or use along like the caffeine solution if you're experiencing dark circles. And so I'm going to include 2 water-based serums. I'm going to get started with the caffeine solution. As they recommend, it's going to be kind of like your first serum after your cleansing step, or maybe after your exfoliating acids. And then you can apply that one on the eye contour, and then I'm going to follow on with hyaluronic acid to add hydration to the skin. So go ahead, if you would like to work with the caffeine solution, grab your caffeine solution and use 1 drop for both eyes or 1 drop per eye. But make sure that you're not going to overdo it and that it has time to absorb into the skin. When using too much of it, it can feel quite sticky and maybe a bit drying on the skin, so therefore I recommend using as little as possible. When applying the caffeine solution, you can use it on the eye contour, but please do not use it on top of your eyes like the eyelids or even the upper part from the eyes. It's really just meant for the eye contour. And again, please do not get it into your eyes. So for me, 1 drop is enough for both eyes. Use it between your fingers and then gently blend it. So once you have applied it to the skin, you're going to leave it on the skin. There's no need to wash it off. Now, in between each step or every product that you're going to apply to the skin, you can give it about 30 seconds to a minute in between so that the product has enough time to absorb into the skin before moving on to the next step. This just makes sure that you won't come across any layering issues. Otherwise, you may come across pilling, or it may just feel extremely uncomfortable on the skin. So take your time in between each step. Now I'm going to move on to hyaluronic acid, which adds hydration to the skin. And since it has a thicker, stickier texture, I recommend using about 2 to 3 drops. If you should have a serum that has really like a water-like formulation, such as marine hyaluronics, I recommend going with about 5 to 8 drops, or maybe 5 to 10 drops, so that you have enough to properly blend it all over your face and neck. And if you should have serums that have a thin texture but not like water, then I recommend going with about 3 to 5 drops. This should give you an overall general guide to adjust the amount accordingly to the texture of your serum that you may have. And so again, use between 2 to 3 drops if you're using a serum like hyaluronic acid that has a thicker, stickier texture. Now, the way on how you can apply it to the skin is either dispense some product on the palm of your hand, fingertips, or immediately to the skin, and then gently start blending it all over. Again, please make sure to not get it into your eyes nor into your mouth. So, once you have applied it all over your face and neck, you're going to leave it on the skin. There's no need to wash it off. And now once you're done with your water-based serums, you can move on to the next step, which would be anhydrous solutions, keeping the focus on the antioxidant serum. This can be pycnogenol or resveratrol with ferulic acid, so either one of them is fine. When using them, they have a bit more of an oilier texture, but still a bit more of a lightweight texture. So again, the guide of using about 3 to 5 drops should be more than enough. Start off with 3, see how far you can blend it. If that shouldn't be enough, you can always add a couple of drops more. And so as an example, I'm going to use the ordinary resveratrol with ferulic acid, and I'm going to apply it evenly over my face and neck on top of the water-based serums. So once you have applied it all over your face and neck, you're going to leave it on the skin. There's no need to wash it off. Now, when using one of the ordinary antioxidant serum and you're being completely new to them, feeling in the beginning a heat-like tension or like sensation is normal. Don't worry, this should calm down the more your skin is getting used to this. And so once you're done with this specific step, you can move on to a moisturizer if you would like to include one. Again, make sure to adjust the order of application depending on what moisturizer that you're using. If you're using a lightweight moisturizer, use it before applying the suspension. If you're using a heavier moisturizer, use it after the suspension. And so in this example, I'm going to use the ordinary natural moisturizing factors, which you would use before. And use about a bean size amount more or less for your face and neck. If you have included additional steps in between as well, then you may even want to reduce it to a pea-size amount, because you may not feel the need of using so much of your moisturizer as you have already put your serums before you're going to apply the moisturizer. So make sure that you're going to adjust it accordingly. So, and once you've applied your moisturizer all over, you're going to leave it on the skin. There's no need to wash it off. And now you can move on to the vitamin C suspension. Now, since it is in silicone, it is a bit thicker, in texture, kind of like a cream actually. And I recommend using about a pea-size amount. This should be more than enough to have an even and thin layer that you're going to apply all over your face and neck. If you're going to use more than that, the risk of experiencing sensitivity is much greater because it is such a potent vitamin C suspension. So please keep this in mind that you need to adjust the amount accordingly, otherwise you may end up with sensitivity. So about that much, more or less. And then blend it all over your face and neck, avoiding the eye area, including on top of your eyes, and please do not get it too close to the actual lip. You can theoretically use it on the eye contour. However, if you have a sensitive eye contour, I recommend avoiding this as well because it is so potent. So once you've applied your vitamin C suspension all over, you're going to leave it on the skin. There's no need to wash it off. Now if you come across a tingling sensation, don't worry, this is normal. This is specifically like happening in the very beginning. Once your skin gets used to it, this should reduce. As long as you do not experience anything stinging or burning, there's nothing to worry about it. However, if you should come across stinging and burning, this is now where I want to lead into my mixing guide. Because if you say, well, I've tried vitamin C suspension on its own and it does sting and burn a bit on the skin, but not too much, not that I'm not able to tolerate it, but it's maybe just a bit too strong for me, then you can go ahead and dilute it with your moisturizer. And so if you're planning on doing this, I recommend using a moisturizer that's very simple and does not conflict with the vitamin C suspension. My best example and recommendation would be the ordinary natural moisturizing factors, because that one is so simple and can be like used to dilute any product basically. And when doing the mixture, I recommend using about a pea-sized amount of your moisturizer and just a tiny amount of the vitamin C suspension, because you want to reduce the strength of it, you want to dilute it. And then using too much of the vitamin C suspension won't do much if you're just going to use the same amount again. So try to reduce it less than a pea-sized amount. So go ahead, grab your moisturizer, use about a pea-sized amount on the palm of your hand. About that much, more or less. This can be like slightly adjusted so that you still have enough product to evenly blend it over your face and neck. And then just use a tiny amount of the suspension. So about that much. And this would be a great beginner mixing guide, because over time, if you say, well, I'm now ready to move up to like a higher mixture, then you can always reduce the amount of your moisturizer a bit more, but add more of your vitamin C suspension to it, so that you can figure out what your skin can tolerate. And then maybe at some point you are able to use the vitamin C suspension on its own if your skin has adjusted to it. And so if you have the mixture on the palm of your hand, go ahead, mix it. And then again, once you have nicely mixed it, rub your hands together and then gently blend it over your face and neck. Again, being careful around the eyes and do not get it into your eyes nor into your mouth. And so then there you have a guide on how you can dilute the vitamin C suspension with your moisturizer. Now, of course, either use the vitamin C suspension on its own and apply it to the skin, or do the mixing. Please do not apply the vitamin C suspension twice. One is enough. And so if you now say, well, I'm trying to do a more like potent complex, I want to use my antioxidant serum with the vitamin C suspension, am I able to like mix it together? Can I use them together instead of layering them? And so yes, that's completely fine. You can go ahead and do so. And one great combination would be going with one of the ordinary antioxidant serums. So again, pycnogenol or resveratrol with ferulic acid, and then mix it with the vitamin C suspension. Or use one of the antioxidant serums, the vitamin C suspension and an oil. So you can go ahead and go with either one of them, but I'm going to show you now how you can do the mixture with all three, using the antioxidant serum, vitamin C suspension and oil. I have an oil right here and I'm currently using the ordinary rosehip seed oil to give you an example. So what you can do is use about a pea-sized amount, more or less, of the vitamin C suspension on the palm of your hand, about that much more or less, and then go ahead, grab your antioxidant serum, and I recommend using 2 drops of both, like either 2 drops of the antioxidant serum like alone and then mix it with the vitamin C suspension, or 2 drops of the antioxidant serum and your oil and then mix it. So, and now the oil. And once you have added your drops to the vitamin C suspension, you can go ahead and mix it on the palm of your hand. And this is an extremely powerful antioxidant combination that you can do. And you can save some steps and you have all in one. So once you have nicely blended it on the palm of your hand, you can see right here, it turns out really nicely. Rub your hands together and then blend it all over your face and neck. And then there you have another method on how you can do this instead of layering so many products after another. Now, if you now say you cannot tolerate your vitamin C suspension, doesn't matter if you're using it on its own or diluting it with your moisturizer, you may just have a sensitivity towards the percentage that's being used, because it's containing 30% of ascorbic acid, which is quite high. And so therefore you want to look into alternatives. And when looking into the Ordinary products, they have several vitamin C products, and two examples would be the Ordinary ascorbic acid 8% plus alpha-butene 2%. It still contains ascorbic acid, but at a much lower percentage. Or you can look into a vitamin C derivative such as the Ordinary ascorbic glucoside solution, and then just use it instead of your vitamin C suspension. And then there you have it. Now, if you enjoyed this video, if you find it helpful, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up as well as share it. If you now want to learn more about skincare, I'm going to leave some of the videos at the end of the video. However, if you want to learn more about Ordinary products in general, I have several videos on my YouTube channel, including every Ordinary product, so please feel free to check them out. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon in the next one. Happy skincaring. Bye!